Olivia Mary de Havilland is a British-American actress known for her early ingenue roles, as well as her later, more substantial roles. Born in Tokyo to English parents, de Havilland and her younger sister, actress Joan Fontaine, moved to California in 1919. She performed as Melanie Hamilton in Gone with the Wind and in 8 co-starring roles opposite Errol Flynn, including Captain Blood, The Adventures of Robin Hood, Dodge City, Santa Fe Trail, and They Died with Their Boots On. At the age of 99, de Havilland is the oldest living actor who has won an Academy Award. She is the last surviving major actor from Gone with the Wind and is among the last living actors from the golden age of Hollywood. De Havilland won the Academy Award for Best Actress for her performances in To Each His Own and The Heiress. De Havilland and sister Fontaine are the only siblings to have won Lead Acting Academy Awards. She also received the National Board of Review Award, the New York Film Critics Circle Award, the Italian National Syndicate of Film Journalists Silver Ribbon, and the Venice Film Festival Volpi Cup for her performance in The Snake Pit. She was awarded the Golden Globe Award for her performance in The Heiress in 1950 and for Anastasia, The Mystery of Anna in 1987. In 1960, she was honored with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame for her work in films. In 2008, she was presented with the National Medal of Arts by President George W. Bush. Early life. Olivia de Havilland was born on July 1, 1916, in Tokyo, Japan, to parents from the United Kingdom. Her father, Walter Augustus de Havilland, was educated at the University of Cambridge and served as an English professor at the Imperial University in Tokyo before becoming a patent attorney, with a practice in Japan. Her mother, Lillian Augusta, was educated at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in London and became a stage actress who left her career after going to Tokyo with her husband. Her mother would return to work with the stage name Lillian Fontaine after her daughters achieved fame in the 1940s. Olivia's paternal cousin was Sir Geoffrey de Havilland, an aircraft designer, notably of the de Havilland Mosquito, and founder of the aircraft company which bore his name. Her paternal grandfather, the Reverend Charles Richard de Havilland, was from a family from Guernsey, in the Channel Islands. De Havilland's parents married in 1914, but the marriage was not a happy one due to her father's infidelities. Her younger sister, Joan de Havilland, was born on October 22, 1917. In February 1919, Lillian persuaded her husband to take the family back to England to a climate better suited for their ailing daughters. The family stopped in California to treat Olivia's bronchial condition and high temperature. After Joan developed pneumonia, Lillian decided to remain with her daughters in California, where they settled in the village of Saratoga, about 50 miles south of San Francisco. Her father abandoned the family and returned to his Japanese housekeeper, who would eventually become his second wife. Her parents' divorce was not finalized until February 1925. Although she left the acting profession, Lillian taught her daughters to appreciate the arts, reading Shakespeare to her children. She also taught them music and elocution. In April 1925, after her divorce was finalized, Lillian remarried, this time to a department store owner named George M. Fontaine, whose strict parenting soon generated animosity in his new stepdaughters. Only a year apart, the sisters became lifelong rivals. De Havilland was educated at Saratoga Grammar School, the Notre Dame High School in Belmont, and Los Gatos High School. In high school, she excelled in oratory and field hockey and participated in the school drama club. In 1933, she made her debut in amateur theatre in the lead role in Alice in Wonderland, a production of the Saratoga Community Players based on the work of Lewis Carroll. She would later remember. After graduating high school in 1934, de Havilland was offered the role of Puck in the Saratoga Community Theatre production of A Midsummer Night's Dream. That summer, Austrian director Max Reinhardt came to California for a major new production of the same play at the Hollywood Bowl. After one of Reinhardt's assistants saw Olivia perform in the Saratoga production, he offered her the understudy position for the role of Hermia. 1 week before the premiere, the actress playing Hermia left to take a part in a film, and de Havilland took her place. After receiving positive reviews, she went on to play Hermia through the entire engagement, as well as the 4-week tour that followed. During the tour, Reinhardt received word that he would direct the Warner Brothers film version of his staged production, and he offered de Havilland the film role of Hermia. Wanting to become an English teacher, she was going to matriculate at Mills College with a scholarship in the fall, but Reinhardt persuaded her to accept. Soon after, the 18-year-old actress signed a 7-year contract with Warner Brothers. Career. Olivia de Havilland made her screen debut in Max Reinhardt's film A Midsummer Night's Dream, which was released in October 1935. Following the release of her second and third films, Alibi Ike with Joey Brown and The Irish in Us with James Cagney, respectively, all 3 films received mixed reviews and disappointing public response. At this point, Warner Brothers made a decision that would have a profound impact on her career, pairing her with an unknown Tasmanian actor named Errol Flynn in Captain Blood. The casting of de Havilland was due to producer Hal B. Wallace wanting to showcase his protégé. The popular success of the film, as well as the critical response to the on-screen couple, led to 7 additional collaborations, including The Charge of the Light Brigade, The Adventures of Robin Hood, Dodge City, Santa Fe Trail, and They Died with Their Boots On. Throughout the late 1930s, de Havilland appeared in a variety of light romantic comedy films, including Call It a Day, For's a Crowd, and Hard to Get, as well as period films such as Anthony Adverse and The Great Garrick. Her refined demeanor and beautiful diction made her particularly effective in the latter films. While her performances were generally well received by critics and the public, they did not advance her career toward the more serious roles she desired. One such role was the character of Melanie Hamilton in David O. Selznick's upcoming film adaptation of Margaret Mitchell's epic novel Gone with the Wind. Having read the novel, de Havilland knew she could bring the character to life on the screen. According to some sources, her sister Joan Fontaine was approached by director George Cukor to audition for the role. Interested more in playing Scarlett O'Hara, Fontaine reportedly turned him down, recommending her sister. Ultimately, Jack L. Warner's wife Anne was instrumental in de Havilland getting the part. She was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for her performance. Following the critical acclaim she received for her performance in Gone with the Wind, de Havilland sought more serious and challenging roles, but was not supported in her efforts by Warner Brothers. After receiving third billing in The Private Lives of Elizabeth and Essex starring Bette Davis and Errol Flynn, she was loaned out to Samuel Goldwyn for the crime drama Raffles, and then assigned to the light musical comedy My Love Came Back. Throughout the early 1940s, de Havilland was becoming increasingly frustrated by the roles assigned to her, which she felt were unchallenging and insubstantial. Feeling she had proven herself capable of playing more than the demure ingenues and damsels in distress that were typecasting her, she began to reject scripts that offered her this type of role and actively sought out better roles. She concluded her long series of popular films with Errol Flynn with Santa Fe Trail and They Died with Their Boots On, which contained some of their most telling scenes together. Other highlights from this period include The Strawberry Blonde with James Cagney, Hold Back the Dawn with Charles Boyer, for which she received fine reviews, and Princess O'Rourke, which she considered one of the few truly satisfying characters she played for Warner Brothers. In 1942, de Havilland received an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress for her performance in Hold Back the Dawn. After fulfilling her 7-year Warner Brothers contract with the male animal in This Our Life, Government Girl, and Devotion, her last Warner Brothers film completed in 1943 and released in 1946. De Havilland was informed that 6 months had been added to her contract for times she had been on suspension. The law then allowed studios to suspend contract players for rejecting a role, and the period of suspension could be added to the contract period. Most contract players accepted this, but a few tried to change the system, including Bette Davis, who mounted an unsuccessful lawsuit against Warner Brothers in the 1930s. In August 1943, on the advice of her lawyer, de Havilland took Warner Brothers to court and was supported by the Screen Actors Guild. In 1944, the California Court of Appeals for the Second District, an intermediate appellate court in the state, ruled in her favor. The decision was one of the most significant and far-reaching legal rulings in Hollywood, reducing the power of the studios and extending greater creative freedom to performers. California's resulting 7-year rule, also known as Labor Code Section 2855, is still known today as the de Havilland Law. Her legal victory won de Havilland the respect and admiration of her peers, among them her own sister Joan Fontaine, who later commented, "Hollywood owes Olivia a great deal." Warner Brothers reacted to the decision by circulating a letter to other studios that had the effect of a virtual blacklisting. As a consequence, de Havilland did not work in a film studio for 2 years. Following the release of Devotion, a highly fictionalized biography of the Bronte sisters filmed in 1943 but withheld from release during the suspension and litigation, de Havilland signed a 3-picture deal with Paramount Pictures. The quality and variety of her roles began to improve. In his review of The Dark Mirror, James Agee noted the change, writing that although she had always been one of the prettiest women in movies, her recent performances had proven her acting ability. He also noted that while not possessing any remarkable talent, her performances are thoughtful, quiet, detailed, and well-sustained. Agee concluded that her acting is founded, as some more talented playing is not, in an unusually healthful-seeming and likable temperament. It is an undivided pleasure to see. De Havilland received the Academy Award for Best Actress for her performances in To Each His Own and The Heiress, and was also widely praised for her Academy Award-nominated performance in The Snake Pit, one of the earliest films to attempt a realistic portrayal of mental illness and an historically important Hollywood exposé of the grim conditions in state mental hospitals. De Havilland was lauded for her willingness to play a role that was completely devoid of glamour and that confronted such controversial subject matter. She won the New York Film Critics Award for both The Snake Pit and The Heiress. After becoming a naturalized citizen of the United States on November 28, 1941, de Havilland became involved in politics as a way of exercising her civic responsibilities. She campaigned for Franklin D. Roosevelt's re-election in 1944 and traveled overseas to support the American troops. After the war, she joined the Independent Citizens Committee of the Arts, Sciences and Professions, a national public policy advocacy group that included Bette Davis, Gregory Peck, and Humphrey Bogart in its Hollywood chapter. In June 1946, she was asked to deliver speeches for the committee that reflected the Communist Party line. Disturbed by the reports of Stalinist atrocities and how a small group of communist members were manipulating the committee, de Havilland removed the pro-communist material from her speeches and rewrote them to reflect Harry S. Truman's anti-communist program. She later recalled, "I realized a nucleus of people was controlling the organization without a majority of the members of the board being aware of it, and I knew they had to be communists." She organized the fight to regain control of the committee from its pro-Soviet leadership, but her reform efforts failed. Her resignation from the committee triggered a wave of resignations from other Hollywood figures, including her own star recruit to the reform camp, the future President Ronald Reagan, whose political trajectory after 1952 would be far more dramatic. Despite galvanizing Hollywood resistance to Soviet influence, de Havilland was denounced that same year, along with Danny Kaye, Frederick March, and Edward G. Robinson, as of Swimming Pool Pink, in Time magazine for her involvement in the committee. In 1958, she was secretly called before the House Un-American Activities Committee and recounted her experiences with the Independent Citizens Committee. In the 1950s, de Havilland made fewer films in order to raise her two children. She declined the role of Blanche Dubois in A Streetcar Named Desire, later explaining, "I had just given birth to my son. That was a transforming experience, and when the script was presented to me, I couldn't relate to it." The role went to her Gone with the Wind co-star, Vivien Leigh, who won her second Academy Award for her performance. During the decade, de Havilland starred in 6 films, including My Cousin Rachel, with Richard Burton, for which she earned a Golden Globe nomination, That Lady, Not as a Stranger with Robert Mitchum and Frank Sinatra, The Ambassador's Daughter with John Forsythe, The Proud Rebel, and Libel with Dirk Bogarde. Of her few film appearances in the 1960s, chiefly notable are de Havilland's role in Lady in a Cage as a crippled widow trapped in a lift and terrorized by intruders, Robert Aldrich's Hush, Hush, Sweet Charlotte, and Sam Peckinpah's TV film of Catherine Ann Porter's novella Noon Wine. In 1965, de Havilland was the first woman to preside over a Cannes jury. She was the subject of This Is Your Life in April 1964 when she was surprised by Eamon Andrews in central London. She continued acting on film until the late 1970s, afterward continuing her career on television until the late 1980s, highlighted by her Golden Globe win and Emmy Award nomination for her performance as the Dowager Empress Maria in the 1986 miniseries Anastasia, The Mystery of Anna. In 2008, she was awarded the United States National Medal of Arts.